"Help!" the boy mouthed, barely moving his lips. Calder Ross, 43, steadied the wheel of bus 217. His soldier's eyes, trained for the unusual, snapped to the third row. A boy, no older than 12, pressed something against the window frame, a scrap of paper folded tight, the corner trembling. For a flash, the letters bled through. SOS. Across the aisle, a heavy-set man shifted. He kept his face angled away from Calder, but his knuckles whitened against the boy's shoulder. The threat wasn't spoken, but Calder could feel it. The kind of pressure a predator uses to keep a child frozen. Then, the detail that cemented it. Through the side mirror, Calder caught a gray sedan sliding behind his bus. Same model, same dented fender he'd seen last week. Same plate, or close enough to burn into his mind. A chill rolled through him. The battlefield was gone, but the mission had just begun. He forced his voice steady, calling out the next stop, every syllable measured. But inside, his heart pounded with anger. He had no proof yet, nothing admissible. Only instinct, sharpened by war and years of quiet vigilance. The boy's eyes locked with his in the mirror, desperate, silent, pleading. This isn't a coincidence, Calder thought. This is a pattern, and I'm not letting it repeat. The engine hummed. The tick of the turn signal grew louder, faster, like a metronome pushing him toward a decision. Every fiber of him screamed to act, to rip the man from that seat. But soldiers know, timing is survival. So Calder swallowed the fire, gripped the wheel tighter, and let his plan form. Quiet, methodical, ironclad. Because this wasn't just a bus route anymore, it was a battlefield with different rules. Calder's jaw flexed as he took the corner, his mind racing. Acting out of fury would wreck everything. The man could claim custody, the note could vanish, and the boy would disappear into the city's cracks. No, he needed more. Evidence. Structure. A soldier's mission, not a brawler's impulse. He toggled the mic to his dispatcher. "Elkins, it's Ross, Route 217. You copy?" The voice crackled back. "Copy, Ross. What's the issue?" Calder chose his words with care. Possible rider irregularity. Can't deviate without cause. Logging observations. A pause. Then the dispatcher's flat reply. "If you can't articulate cause, don't alter the route. Protocol, Ross." Protocol. The word bit like ice. He glanced at the boy again, saw those fingers tightening around the folded note, hidden under his thigh. Protocol meant routine. Routine meant the enemy could keep hiding. But Calder had lived long enough to know protocol isn't the enemy. It's the ladder out. He inhaled slowly, pulse steadying. He wouldn't break cover, not yet. Instead, he'd prove the threat piece by piece, build a record that no one could dismiss. In his head, the mission parameters locked in. Objective. Save the boy without tipping the man. Method. Evidence airtight. Timing deliberate. Result. Lawful stop that leaves no doubt. The bus rattled over a pothole. The boy jolted, his eyes flicking back to Calder. Fear there, yes, but also a spark of trust. Calder gave the slightest nod, barely perceptible. A soldier's signal, "I see you, I've got you." The mission was live, and every second counted. The bus hissed to a halt at the next light. Calder's fingers moved quickly, pulling up the electronic log embedded in his console. Each route, each stop, each plate recorded by the system's outer cameras. He scrolled back, heart tightening. There it was. Gray sedan. 3 days ago, same timestamp. A different intersection, but the sedan slid into view behind his bus, plate ending in 497. He jumped forward another day. Again. 1:57 p.m. Same plate, same trailing position. It wasn't chance. It was choreography. The sedan ghosted his mirror even now, 2 car lengths back, maintaining perfect distance. Too neat, too controlled. Calder's gut hardened. In the desert, patterns meant ambush. On city streets, they meant something just as calculated. Somebody wanted this boy delivered on schedule, like cargo. He tapped the console, flagging the footage for his records. A digital trail, hard timestamps, not just a hunch anymore. In the mirror, the boy glanced up. His lips trembled, whispering words Calder couldn't hear. He didn't need to. The plea was written in his posture, his trapped silence. The light turned green. Calder's hand hovered on the gear shift. He felt the weight of command all over again, the invisible responsibility of men's lives, of silent prayers. 1 coincidence people ignore, 2 coincidences they question, but 3 was a system. And Calder Ross was done letting systems swallow children. The hum of the bus filled the silence, broken only by the shuffle of passengers. Calder's mirror caught movement, subtle but sharp. The man leaned in, his thick hand slid up, fingers curling around the back of the boy's neck. A casual gesture meant to look protective. But Calder saw the truth in the boy's flinch, the way his shoulders jerked like a wire pulled too tight. Then, the man answered for him. A fellow passenger asked, "Hey kid, you getting off soon?" Before Eli could open his mouth, the man cut in. Voice smooth, rehearsed. "He's staying on, long ride today." The boy's lips pressed shut. His eyes darted once toward the window, once toward Calder's mirror, silent, begging for someone to notice. Calder's chest burned. Every instinct screamed to stand, to break the man's grip, but training held him back. Force too early meant everything crumbled. So he did the one thing that mattered. He documented. His thumb pressed the incident marker on the console. A red time code blinked on screen, sealing the moment. The cameras above his head captured the man's hand tightening, the boy shrinking away. It was subtle but clear enough for anyone willing to see. The bus rattled, passengers shifting in their seats. The man leaned back, hand still clamped loosely, but Calder had what he needed, coercion visible, logged, and preserved. He exhaled slowly. Piece by piece, the case was building. One more brick laid in the wall he'd used to shield this child. Because Calder Ross wasn't just driving passengers tonight, he was steering evidence toward a courtroom. Calder's thumb hovered on the comm switch. Enough pieces were stacking up, time to raise it higher. "Dispatch Ross again. I've got something," he said, forcing his voice level. "Passenger coercion, same sedan trailing 3 days. Possible abduction." The line crackled, then a new voice. "Police intake. Sir, can you confirm imminent threat? Any weapons displayed? Any verbalized harm?" Calder gritted his teeth. He pictured the boy's small shoulders rigid under that man's grip. Negative on weapons, but the child signaled SOS. "I have repeating surveillance hits." A pause stretched like a wire ready to snap. Then the dispatcher's tone flattened, cold protocol. "Without clear threat, no units deployed. Log it. Continue route." The words hit like a slap. No units, no help. Calder's pulse roared in his ears. He could almost feel the desert sun again, command headquarters telling him to stand down when every instinct screamed otherwise. He stared at the mirror. The boy was shrinking smaller under the man's arm. Time was bleeding away. But fury wouldn't serve him here. The system said no. That didn't mean the mission was over. He exhaled, slow and steady. If the local patrol wouldn't move, he'd climb the ladder himself. Evidence was his weapon, timing was his shield. He tapped another incident log, sealing his call into the record. Paper trails mattered, even refusals had weight later. "Copy," he muttered into the mic. Continuing, his jaw set. No backup didn't mean no way forward, it just meant he'd need to be smarter. The bus lurched past a crowded intersection, neon signs flickering across the windshield. Calder's grip on the wheel tightened. If City Patrol wouldn't budge, he needed someone who would. He dug into memory. Every transit driver had an emergency sheet tucked inside the dash. He flicked it open with one hand. A number glared back. Transit Police Liaison, a direct line. He dialed. A steady female voice answered. "Whitfield Transit Liaison, what's your situation?" Calder kept his tone professional. "Driver Ross, Route 217. Child passenger signaling SOS. Adult handler controlling responses. Same trailing sedan. 3 days. I have camera logs, time-stamped footage, incident markers. Silence. Then the rustle of keys tapping. Case opened. ID 40871. Ross, you're not alone anymore. Keep observing. Keep it routine. We'll build chain of custody as you go." The knot in Calder's chest loosened a fraction. Finally, someone who understood the weight of proof. "Understood," he replied. Remember, Dana Whitfield's voice was firm. "Your job isn't confrontation, it's containment. Document, delay, keep the child visible." Containment. The word clicked into his soldier's brain like a safety catch. He could work with that. He slipped the phone back into its cradle, eyes scanning the mirror. The boy shifted, pulling the folded note tighter to his lap. "Hang on, kid," Calder thought. "The cavalry's moving." The hum of the engine steadied. For the first time since that note flashed against the glass, Calder felt the weight shift. He wasn't in this alone anymore. The bus rattled over a steel grate, the vibrations humming up through the floor. Calder glanced at the clock. He needed time, just enough for responders to position themselves. He thumbed the PA button. His voice carried steady, casual. "Folks, quick safety protocol. I'll be cycling the ramp for inspection. Won't take but a minute. Thanks for your patience." A few passengers groaned but stayed calm. Perfect. He eased the bus to the curb, hazard lights blinking. The hydraulic ramp hissed open at the front, folding down like a tongue. "Everyone remain seated if you'd like," Calder added, tone smooth. His eyes flicked to the boy. The child froze, then relaxed when he realized he didn't have to move. The handler's grip loosened just slightly. Calder bent, working the controls, buying seconds. He positioned himself in the aisle just enough to block the man's line of sight, shielding the boy in the camera's wide angle. The ramp whined back up. Calder cycled it again, tapping his boot against the lever as if testing stability. To the passengers, it was routine maintenance. To Calder, it was a stall tactic. 60, maybe 90 seconds bought without raising suspicion. He caught the boy's eyes in the mirror again. Just a flicker of relief there, fragile but real. Behind him, the handler shifted, suspicion low-grade but present. Calder's shoulders stayed loose, casual, just another driver following the rulebook. The ramp sealed shut with a final hiss. Calder eased the bus back into traffic, heart pounding. He'd bought his first pocket of time, and in rescues. Sometimes one pocket of time meant the difference between capture and freedom. As the bus rolled forward, Calder spotted something in the boy's lap. A transfer slip, creased, edges worn, the kind riders used without a second thought, but Eli clutched it too tightly, like it held meaning. When the handler turned to adjust his jacket, Calder spoke low, steady into the mic. "Whitfield, slip in the boy's hand." Small text. Trying to catch it, he angled the overhead mirror, zooming just enough to read the faint print. Tiny numbers, a route code, and one strange word scrawled across the margin in lilac ink. Carousel. Whitfield's tone sharpened on the line. "Repeat that." "Carousel," written across the chit. There was a pause. Longer this time. Then, "Ross. That's a flagged keyword. It matches prior investigations. Intake pattern. You've just escalated this from isolated suspicion to systemic." Calder's breath caught. Systemic. That meant organized. Not a lone predator, but a network. He forced his tone calm. "Copy. Evidence logged." The boy shifted again, pressing the slip flat, hiding it beneath his thigh. Calder said nothing, only adjusted his posture, letting the onboard camera drink in the detail before it vanished. The city lights flickered across his windshield, cold and relentless. The battlefield had a name now. Carousel. And that name meant this wasn't just about saving one child. It was about cutting into something bigger, darker, and far more dangerous than anyone on this bus could imagine. Calder kept his hand steady on the wheel, but his mind worked like clockwork. Every detail mattered now. Evidence wasn't just proof, it was the boy's shield. He tapped a sequence on the console, pulling stills from the onboard cameras. The red incident marker blinked, sinking to the second. Above his head, a camera's soft whir told him it was capturing everything. The man's hand clamped on the boy's neck, the child's shrinking frame, the folded slip with Carousel. "Whitfield," Calder murmured into the mic. "Uploading flagged clips. Chain of custody intact." Her reply was quick, businesslike. "Received, duplicate and seal. 2 copies, one for the vault, one mirrored. This will hold in court." He drew a stylus from the dash, scrawling his initials across the digital log, then hit seal. A faint chime rang out, final and absolute. For a heartbeat, Calder's chest eased, not from relief, but from certainty. If anyone tried to bury this, the evidence would outlast them. He risked another glance in the mirror. The boy sat rigid, lips pressed tight, but his eyes flickered toward Calder, sensing something had shifted. Something protective now surrounded him, even if he couldn't see it. Calder's jaw set. The world often looked away, but not this time. The paper trail was alive, breathing, undeniable. He wasn't just driving a bus, he was laying a foundation stone by stone, building a wall no predator could tear down. The rhythm of the ride shattered when Calder saw the handler move. A vibration buzzed from the man's pocket. A text. He leaned down, read quickly, then tugged the boy's sleeve. The kid flinched, resisting just enough to make the struggle obvious, but the man's grip tightened. He guided Eli toward the rear door. 2 stops early. Calder's pulse hammered. If they slipped off now, the trail snapped in half. Everything, evidence, child, case, would vanish into the night. He needed to stall, without force, without breaking cover. The bus slowed at the stop, door chime ringing. The man stood, yanking Eli up with him. Calder's voice rang out, cheerful and apologetic. "Hold on, folks. Ramp test glitched earlier. Got to reset before we move again." He stepped down the aisle. casually aligning a stroller across the narrow space, blocking the rear door. "Sorry, folks, just a moment." Passengers shuffled, muttering. The handler's eyes narrowed. His grip on the boy's sleeve didn't loosen, but he couldn't push forward without causing a scene. "Perfect." Calder bent, tapping the ramp control once more. Hydraulic hiss. Countdown in his head. 30 seconds stolen, maybe more. Behind him, tension coiled tight, but the door stayed closed. The boy glanced at Calder, relief ghosting across his face. One move at a time, Calder thought. You're not leaving this bus on his schedule, only mine. The next stop approached. Neon bleeding across the pavement. Calder's heart thudded as he spotted two figures at the curb. Ordinary clothes, neutral stances, but he knew the type. Plainclothes transit officers. He pulled the bus smoothly to the stop. Doors wheezed open. The pair boarded without fanfare, swiping fare cards like regular passengers. But Calder caught the subtle nod, the glint of earpieces under their collars. Dana Whitfield's voice came through the line. Units embedded, maintain routine. Passengers shifted, some exiting, others settling in. But the flow slowed, controlled, deliberate. The officers positioned themselves near both exits, leaning casually against poles. Their presence was invisible to most, but Calder saw the perimeter tighten. The handler stiffened. His hand twitched on Eli's sleeve. He scanned the new arrivals, suspicion creeping into his eyes. Calder adjusted the mirror, giving him a look of professional indifference, just a driver counting passengers. Nothing unusual, but inside, his blood thrummed. For the first time, the field felt level. He wasn't a lone soldier holding the line. He had formation now, quiet, disciplined, lethal in its subtlety. The boy stayed seated, eyes darting from Calder to the nearest officer. He didn't know yet, but the net was closing. A whisper crackled in Calder's ear. "We have it. Hold steady." He shifted gears, guiding the bus back into traffic. To the untrained eye, just another routine stop. But beneath the calm, the bus had transformed. It wasn't just public transit anymore. It was a cage, with the predator already inside. The city blurred past, but Calder felt the weight of watchful eyes inside the bus. The embedded officers were already working, quietly mapping the puzzle. One of them, a wiry tech with a satchel, studied a tablet. License plates from Calder's logs scrolled across the screen, matching hits from traffic cams. Another officer murmured into a lapel mic, syncing timelines with Central Command. Whitfield's voice buzzed through. "Ross, we've confirmed 3 separate sightings. Same sedan, same plate, multiple days mirrored across your route. This isn't custody, this is pipeline." Pipeline. The word chilled him. Not just one boy in danger, dozens, maybe more, funneled through routine routes like cattle through gates. Calder's stomach knotted, but his focus sharpened. This isn't a fluke. It's a system, and systems can be dismantled. He kept his tone measured. Acknowledged. Maintaining route. The boy's gaze flickered to the plainclothes officer seated nearby. The slightest glimmer of hope touched his eyes. He didn't smile. He didn't dare. But the rigid fear in his shoulders eased. Calder gripped the wheel tighter. The mission had shifted. It wasn't just extraction anymore. It was exposure. The shadow web pulling children through this city had a name, a pattern, and now, thanks to this bus ride, a witness trail. The midpoint had arrived, and from here, there was no turning back. The ride pressed on, but Calder sensed the circle tightening. Every second the boy stayed on this bus, the case grew stronger. Every detail counted. Then came the break. As Eli shifted in his seat, something slipped from his pocket. A small tag, folded in half, almost lost against the scuffed floor. Calder caught it in the mirror. The handler bent down too late. Calder had already logged the timestamp. One of the embedded officers scooped the tag casually, palming it before the man could notice. A moment later, it slid into a protective sleeve. Whitfield's voice came through, steady but sharper now. "Ross, we've got handwriting. Riverton, room 214, Tuesday 2:15. That's an intake slot." Calder's grip tightened. His gut had told him this wasn't random. Now the paper screamed proof. They weren't just trailing a child. They were delivering him to a place, a schedule. The boy glanced up, eyes wide, realizing the slip was gone. Calder met his gaze in the mirror and gave a single imperceptible nod. "We've got it, son. You're not disappearing tonight." The handler didn't notice. He was staring out of the window, face tense, thumbs twitching against his leg. Something in him knew the ground was shifting. The city blocks blurred by, but Calder felt clarity cut through the noise. He wasn't driving aimlessly anymore. He had coordinates. The enemy's destination was written down in ink, and that meant the game had changed. In the command channel, voices overlapped. Analysts, legal staff, ethics advisors. Calder caught fragments through the earpiece. Cross-reference Riverton, multiple mentions. Carousel intake confirmed. Then Whitfield's tone leveled, flat as steel. Ross, this isn't a custody dispute. The network is called Carousel. We've seen fragments for months. This is the first live intercept. Carousel. The word landed like a stone in Calder's gut. A system designed to spin children round and round until they disappeared into shadows. He forced his voice calm. Understood. Route intact. The officers near the doors shifted subtly, their posture tightening. The bus wasn't just a vehicle anymore. It was a moving evidence pod carrying living proof of a network long whispered about, now finally named. Calder's eyes flicked to the boy. Eli clutched his folded arms tight, shrinking into himself. He couldn't hear the words, but his body knew something was changing. The handler shifted again, scanning the aisle, suspicion sharpening. His jaw clenched. He could feel the shift too, the current dragging him somewhere he didn't control. In Calder's chest, rage simmered under discipline. For years, networks like this thrived because ordinary people looked away. Tonight, Carousel had been dragged into the light. This wasn't just a soldier saving one boy anymore. It was an army closing in on an entire machine. Calder checked the clock, steadying his breath. He knew the feeling. Midpoint of a mission when chaos threatened, but clarity anchored you. And clarity had a name now, Carousel. The next minutes unfolded like silent choreography. While Calder guided the bus along its route, the embedded officers received fresh orders through their earpieces. Whitfield's voice carried the weight of command. Rules of engagement are set. Non-lethal, full evidence capture, no deviation from legal chain. Ross, you'll anchor front shield until handoff. A commander's voice cut in crisp. Go, no-go decision authorized. Paperwork signed. Everyone knows their lane. Calder's jaw flexed. He had lived this rhythm before. Clear ROE, no improvisation, every move timed against law and ethics. It was the only way to win without losing the soul of the mission. He eased the bus into a turn, keeping his tone light over the PA. Next stop, Main and 14th. Please remain seated until we arrive. To the passengers, it was routine. To Calder, it was staging. One officer slid a wristband around his arm, signal light blinking green. Another checked a recorder clipped to her vest. Evidence, custody, legality, all preloaded, ready. Calder drew a slow breath. For the first time since the boy flashed that folded note, he felt something steady under his boots. Not instinct, not rage. Infrastructure. This wasn't about breaking rules to save a child. It was about writing new ones that would protect many more. The bus rumbled on, carrying them all toward the neutral stop where the breach would unfold. The neutral stop loomed ahead, a quiet transit hub half lit under sodium lamps. Calder felt the tension coil in his gut, sharp and familiar, the heartbeat before a breach. He pulled the bus smoothly to the curb, doors side open. A few passengers shuffled out, oblivious, but others stayed, eyes glued to their phones, unaware that the air inside had gone electric. The embedded officers moved with quiet precision. One angled toward the rear door, the other shifted closer to the handler. Their casual masks never slipped, but Calder could feel the net cinching tight. The handler rose, tugging Eli by the arm. "This is our stop," he muttered, but Calder was ready. He stepped subtly into the aisle, body blocking the path, voice calm. "Sir, please wait for the ramp cycle." Safety regulation. Hydraulics hissed as the ramp lowered. The handler froze, forced to pause. That heartbeat was all the officers needed. A nod passed between them. The aisle narrowed, and in that narrow space, quiet mastery unfolded. One officer angled a shoulder, guiding the man backward. Another leaned down, slipping between him and the boy. No shouting, no chaos, just practiced hands, calm voices, and absolute control. Eli blinked, wide-eyed, as a steady palm rested on his shoulder. "You're safe now," a voice whispered. Calder exhaled, the soldier in him recognizing the choreography. Breach and contain, silent and clean. The predator was boxed, the child shielded. The mission had just crossed its most dangerous threshold. The aisle was locked down, passengers hushed, tension thick as glass. Officers worked with surgical precision. One slipped a Faraday pouch over the handler's phone, snapping the seal with a black Sharpie scrawl. Another lifted a small ledger from his jacket pocket, columns of initials, dates, times. Room 214 matches the ledger, Whitfield's voice confirmed over comms. Every Tuesday, 2:15. It's systemic. Calder logged the timestamp on his console, tagging every move. Nothing here could vanish into rumor. It had to survive courtroom scrutiny. The handler snarled, jerking once against the grip, but he was pinned, controlled. The boy sat rigid, eyes flicking from the ledger to Calder as if sensing the paper itself was proof of his ordeal. A technician photographed everything in sequence: the slip, the ledger, the seized phone. Each shot included a digital board flashing date and time. Chain of custody flawless. Calder's pulse hammered, but not from fear, from certainty. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was hard evidence, locked and sealed. He thought of the boy's trembling hand flashing that folded note earlier. A whisper of desperation had now become a wall of facts. In war, proof was survival. In peace, it was justice. Tonight, Calder was carrying both. The bus doors hissed open again at the transit center. Passengers filtered off, unaware of the storm brewing inside. That's when the handler made his move. With a sudden twist, he wrenched free from the officer's grip and bolted down the aisle. His eyes locked on the freight elevator across the platform, a straight shot to escape. Calder's instincts roared, soldier reflexes snapping awake. But instead of lunging, he spotted the panel beside his seat. Emergency stop. He slammed his palm down. A metallic clunk echoed through the hub. The elevator's doors jerked halfway, then froze. Cables whined, brakes grinding until the car shuddered to a dead halt. The handler skidded to a stop, trapped between two officers closing in. His breath came ragged, panic breaking the calm mask he'd worn all ride. Calder stayed planted in his seat, forcing himself to hold still. The soldier inside wanted to chase, to grapple, but restraint mattered more. He had already stopped the escape. The team would finish the rest. Through the windshield, he caught the boy's wide eyes watching him for the first time. Calder let a flicker of reassurance cross his face. You're safe. He's not going anywhere. The handler restrained. The focus shifted instantly to the boy. A woman in plain clothes knelt in front of him, voice soft but steady. Eli, right? You're safe. We've got you. The boy's lips trembled, unsure if he should trust. She offered a blanket, silver foil crinkling gently, and a bottle of water. His hands shook as he reached. Calder watched, muscles coiled but heart easing. The battlefield was secure, but the boy's war wasn't over yet. A medic shone a small penlight across Eli's eyes, murmuring gentle questions. Then she spotted it. A black band strapped around his wrist, almost hidden under his sleeve. She frowned. Signal device. She angled it under the bus light, revealing a faint LED pulsing red. Whitfield's voice sharpened over comms. Tag confirms. He's being tracked. Calder's stomach dropped. Even with the handler contained, the boy was still tethered to the network. Somewhere out there, eyes were watching that blinking dot. The medic worked quickly, slipping a shielded cover over the band. The red pulse vanished. Eli exhaled shakily, as if sensing a chain had loosened. Calder leaned forward slightly, speaking low enough for the boy alone. You did everything right. You held on. You're not alone anymore. Eli's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. He clutched the blanket tighter, drawing the first deep breath of safety in who knew how long. For Calder, it was the quietest victory, not a fight won, but a child reclaimed from silence. The plan shifted to exfiltration. Whitfield's voice carried authority through the comms. Split egress, child in medical van, evidence courier separate, decoy bus deployed. Calder nodded, guiding the vehicle into the transit bay. Outside, 3 vans idled under the sodium lamps, engines low. Officers moved swiftly, dividing roles. One sealed the ledger inside a hardened case, snapping tamper tags. Another carried the handler, cuffed and silent, into a black SUV. But the boy, he was shielded, wrapped in the foil blanket, ushered gently into an unmarked medical van. Calder stepped down onto the pavement, walking beside him for those last few steps. The child glanced up, whispering almost inaudible, "You won't let them take me back, right?" Calder met his eyes, voice steady as iron. "No, they don't get you again." The door shut softly, locking the boy inside a cocoon of safety. The van rolled out first, tail lights fading. A second vehicle followed, carrying sealed electronics. A third bus pulled away last, decoy lights glowing, a phantom meant to confuse any eyes still watching. Calder stood for a moment under the sodium glow, breath steady. The battlefield was behind them, but the war, this carousel machine, was far from over. Still, tonight, one child was free, and that was worth every mile of the route. The transit hub quieted, but the comms sparked alive again. A scrambled voice cut through, routed from the handler's seized phone. Return the band and ledger, or the boy disappears in 48 hours. Whitfield's tone sharpened. Copy trace attempt. They're testing leverage. Calder stood near the bus, jaw locked. He'd heard this kind of bargaining before. Halfway around the world, threats meant to force compromise. But this wasn't a battlefield where trades could be weighed. This was a child. The commander's voice came firm, absolute. We don't negotiate children. Evidence and child remain separate, non-transferable. A hush fell. Every officer present knew the risk. If the network triggered a failsafe, more kids could vanish before they even hit room 214. Calder glanced toward the van carrying Eli. The boy's face hovered in his memory, pale under the foil blanket. Whispering, "You won't let them take me back, right?" He clenched his fists, steadying himself. Some battles tempted men to bend, to bargain. But bending here meant surrendering principle and losing far more lives down the line. No trades, Calder muttered under his breath, as much to himself as to the comms. Not for children, not ever. The line went silent. Then the conspirator's voice hissed again. Then you've chosen war. So be it, Calder thought. The wristband still blinked faintly, even under the shield. A reminder that the boy wasn't fully free yet. The tech officer crouched beside it, tools laid out like a surgeon's kit. "Dead man ping," he whispered. "If we cut it wrong, the network gets an instant alert." Calder's stomach tightened. The handler might be in cuffs, but Carousel still had claws. Whitfield gave the nod. Shadow the signal, clone, then sever, quiet as a ghost. The officer wound a coil antenna around the band, watching a waveform dance across his tablet. Slowly, methodically, he cloned the ticking signal, feeding a phantom heartbeat back into the system. Calder's breath came shallow, every second stretching taut. The boy sat frozen, eyes locked on the red LED that pulsed like a captive heartbeat. "Steady, steady," the tech muttered. Then, with a click so soft it barely registered, the light winked out. The boy gasped, clutching his wrist as though a chain had just fallen away. The phantom signal kept pulsing on the tablet. Carousel none the wiser. Relief swept the team. But more than relief. Discipline. This wasn't brute force. It was precision. Ethics guiding skill, not rage. Calder exhaled slowly. That's how you win a war without firing a shot. He glanced at the boy, who now looked less like a victim and more like a survivor. The mission was shifting again, from rescue to justice. The operation moved into its final act. Officers swept the transit hub, converging on the last accomplices who had shadowed the handler. No drawn weapons, no shouted threats. Just quiet, confident hands snapping cuffs, wrists pinned. Suspects guided out like pieces on a chessboard. Each arrest was documented in triplicate. Faraday bags, sealed phones, tablets, and keycards. Evidence boards clicked with timestamp overlays, signatures, and witness notations. Whitfield's voice over comms was calm, almost clinical. Custody secure, case chain intact. Ross, all units green. Calder stood near the bus, shoulders finally easing. Around him, the hub looked ordinary again. Commuters waiting, buses rumbling in and out. To the untrained eye, nothing remarkable had happened here, but Calder knew justice didn't always roar. Sometimes it whispered in paperwork, sealed in evidence bags, preserved in signatures. The handler caught his eye as he was led past. Fury etched across his face. But Calder didn't flinch. His job wasn't vengeance. His job was to make sure truth reached the courtroom untouched. The officer's clipboard clicked shut. A seal number scrawled across the line. One click, one seal, one future verdict locked in place. By dawn, the bus was empty, cordoned off for evidence sweep. Calder stood outside, fatigue tugging at his bones. But his focus stayed sharp. Eli was gone, not into shadow, but into care. A pediatric team waited with blankets, food, and a child advocate who never left his side. Calder watched from a distance as the boy clutched the advocate's hand. No longer trembling, the ledger and phones moved under escort to the district attorney's office. Warrants were already being drafted. Carousel's quiet machinery had been dragged into daylight, its gears frozen by proof too solid to ignore. Later, the transit authority issued a statement. New safeguards ordered by the court. Plate flagging for recurring tails. Neutral stops designated for intervention. A hotline posted inside every bus. Eye level for kids who might need it. Calder traced a finger along the metal frame of his bus. Now just steel and glass again. But to him, it had been a battlefield. And tonight, it had been won. He thought of Eli's whispered plea. "You won't let them take me back, right?" And the way hope flickered in his eyes when the LED winked out. That was the answer. Justice wasn't just about courts and evidence. It was about restoring a child's breath, dignity, and future. As the sun rose, Calder climbed back into his seat, engine rumbling to life. Another route waited, another set of passengers. But tonight's lesson would echo through every mile. A child's dignity comes first, always.